Hey, welcome, my friends. It's a very big honor to be together with you, to be able to learn together with you, and to be able to explore some very, very peculiar activities that we have as Jewish people, putting boxes on our arms, engaging with tying knots around our heads, and very, very unique activities that we see are idiosyncratic to the Jewish people. And the question is why? Why on earth do we do such things? We're told that we do these things when we're bar mitzvah. We're told that men particularly have an obligation to engage with such requirements of putting on tefillin. But let's try and understand what deeper messages we can try and imbibe into our reality, into our lives through this particular mitzvah. So before we go into the verses, let's just have a quick, broad, eagle eye type of understanding of this mitzvah, and let's try and understand what it's required. What requirements are upon an individual? So we understand we have two boxes, a box that is on one's head, a box that is on one's arm, and in the boxes have particular verses from the Torah, particular paragraphs from the Torah, and they are tied on in a particular way. The color of these boxes have to be particularly the color black. It's very fashionable, one of my favorite colors, and happens to just jive with me nicely. You know, I like my black, and I've got a black car, black Vespa. Black is my color. But why black? Out of all colors, black. Can't we, imagine we had turquoise tefillin, coral tefillin. Imagine, now you have these phones, different phone covers. Imagine people could get special colored tefillin, be an amazing sell, but not black. Has to be made from leather, has to be made from animal skin, and has particular letters that are found on the head tefillin, a shin with 4 heads and a shin with 3 heads. And we see that there are different letters spelt through the way that one ties the tefillin on themselves. But we know the letters Shin, Daled, Yud, which spells the name of God, Shaddai. But the bigger question is, apart from just completely nullifying yourself to Hashem by saying, Hashem, I know you want me to do this mitzvah, I'm going to put it on. And I know it's an unbelievable mitzvah to the extent we know that it says a karkafta shleimunach bo tefillin, a skull that does not have on it tefillin is not granted entry into a space of deep connection in the world to come. Sorry, that's just the reality. And a karkafta, it says, is even a day that a person goes without wearing this very powerful energy, is a day that is lost out in this very nutritious space. Okay, that has a big effect. We're going to try and understand what this effect is, how it's working. So if someone was to ask you, which arm do you put your tefillin on with? So if I'm a right-handed individual, what arm would I put my tefillin on? My left. So we go the opposite direction, which is an interesting thing, why one goes to the opposite arm. But I'm going to show you something crazy. Okay, let's have a look at the verses. The verses start off with a verse from the Devarim, which is from the Torah. This is in the Shema. It says, le'ois al yadecha. You must tie them as a sign upon your hand, which is obviously a reference to our arms, because we don't tie the tefillin on our hands, we tie them on our bicep. And they should be totafot, a strange term which we won't get into exactly now. Maybe we'll touch on it, but they should be totafot, between your eyes. Okay, and we understand from this that it needs to be on the top section of one's head, above where their hairline is or used to be in that space, and that's where the tefillin of the head is placed. Now, that's the simple commandment so far. Many questions we could ask. Why does it say beinei necha? It sounds like it should be in between your eyes here. Why is it being placed here? A lot of questions. But before we do, let's just, for some comical relief, But we'll see how deeply this goes in terms of this comical relief. But let's have a look at the Gemara in Brachas. The Gemara in Brachas says, why is it that if you wipe after going to the loo, you must wipe with your right hand and not with your left hand? I'm sorry to break this to everyone here. Why does one need to wipe with their right hand and not their left hand? Apologies, I'm making a mistake here. Ma ein mekanchin b'yamin. Why should you not wipe? We're all thinking, I'm thinking to myself, well, one second, that's not what I do. Not what I do. Why don't we wipe with our right hand? That's what the Gemara says. One must wipe with their left hand. Why is that the case? And you know what the answer is? Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, the answer is Mipnei shekoisher bat tefillin. Because the right hand is the hand that is used to put on tefillin. Again, if you were to look at oneself, okay, we specified this already, that if you're right-handed, you put your tefillin on your left hand. Which arm, which hand would you say is the hand that has tefillin on it? You would say it's the left hand. So surely you should give sensitivity to the fact that the tefillin is on that hand. And the answer is no. The actual hand that is putting on tefillin is the right hand, which is putting it onto your left hand. Unbelievable concept. The right hand, which is putting on the tefillin, is the arm, is the hand that is engaged with the mitzvah of tefillin. It's not this hand. This is just the passive receiver. This is doing all the work. And we're going to discover why. And this is such a fundamental transformation from get-go in terms of our perception of tefillin, because most people think, bang, put it on and it does its magic. No. The magic transpires through one's sensitivity and one's consciousness in putting it on. And we're going to discover what that sensitivity and consciousness is. Yeah, Levi. Yeah, the mitzvah is your right hand is performing that tightening space upon your left arm. And vice versa if you're left-handed. Let's have a look. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. But it says that it should be the kashem lo'ois al yadecha. Sure. That's an interesting concept. It should be a sign onto your hand, which is essentially the right hand, which is doing the sign. Beautiful insight, Levi. Very nice. Let's have a look at Rabbi Nosson in the Kutei Halachos. It's going to reveal to us some unbelievably deep, psychological, transformative concepts. He says like this, the entire mitzvah of tefillin is a mitzvah which is centered around one's emotions. This is emotional. Tefillin is very, very emotional. And the purpose of tefillin is to deal deeply with a space of healing of one's emotional blockages. It's the purpose of tefillin. And to tie those lost energies of the heart into a space of direction. You understand, if an individual doesn't have direction with their emotions, they go haphazard. And they scatter in all different directions, which creates chaos. And what tefillin is here to do is tie those emotions together into a direction. What we refer to that direction is la'avodas yisbarach, to a space of nullification to oneness, to the infinite. Dahainu levatel kol avois nefulos, the shavuros. What we're here to do during tefillin is we are here to nullify all of the fallen and broken spaces of love. the fallen and broken spaces of love, which means inside of us, we have energy, healthy, beautiful, positive, spiritual energy. That energy, when underutilized, falls into foreign places. It falls into desire for money, desire for honor, desire for power, desire for sexuality, desire for pleasure, all different forms of loves that have been fallen and broken, and they fester in the heart. And tefillin comes to clean out. It's the spring cleaning, it's the direction, it's the calibration of one's love. How does this work? Is there some magical entity here? So he writes, Alidei or tefillin shebechinas or nukuda hakadoisha hasher etzel bris shalem. Now all of this transpires through the right arm. Now why through the right arm? Because the right arm is a reference to a light of holiness. Ki tefillin nikram ois. Now we are tapping into a light and into a sign. As we know, tefillin is referred to as a sign. What is it a sign of? You're tying a sign into your arm. Dahainu, bechinas bris sham or hanakuda. We are trying to tap into something called primordial light, purity, love. You see, what's the best way to save an individual who's lost? A person who's deeply in tune with love and light is the only individual that can give guidance to a person who's lost. That love and that light and that deep space of clarity and connection is what is able to bring a person out of that darkness. And same to in a person's own life. We have to understand that inside of ourselves is not only the broken part of self, is not only the fallen parts of self, but inside of every single human being is an unbelievably pure, loving, clear, and directed individual. Not only an individual, an energy force that's inside and is implicit to every human being. What is referred to as the Or Nakuda. This is the whole purpose of tefillin. Kshiras mamish, it's about tying shemekashim tefillin shebechinas Or Nakuda elazrua small shekeneged alev. So we're tying this right hand, which represents this love and this light, into the left hand, which represents one's heart. Why does it represent one's heart? Because the tefillin faces your heart. That box of tefillin needs to face your heart. Or small bechinas gvuros. Now, not only does it face your heart, but the left hand we always know is associated in Kabbalah with judgment. Also an element of feminine that we discussed yesterday, in fact, not yesterday, last week. But this energy force of gvuros, shemesham achizas asitra achra, on the left-hand side is an individual's fallen state. Listen to this. He says, you know what causes breakages in a person's emotional energy? What causes breakages in a person's emotional energy is too much bludgeoning and too much hectic, defined energies. That where an individual would have just had love and acceptance and warmth and connection, that would have healed those spaces, but too much bludgeoning is what defines or creates an unhealthy space. And we can do that to ourselves as well. So tefillin, unbelievably, is associated with this divine light, love, and warmth. We know the right-hand side is the energy of love, the light of love. That's why, by the way, parenthetically, everything we do in Judaism starts off with the right-hand side. If you pick up your Negel Vasa, you pick it up with your right-hand side, pass it to your left. If you tie your shoelaces, we know you start with the right shoe, then you put on your left, and you tie the left and put on your right shoelace. It's always starting with love that's then entering into a space of judgment. And that needs to be the premise. If you ask yourself right now, what takes priority in your life? What type of energy would you say is the primary energy force in your life? An energy of anxiety, of fear, of power, of having to figure out how, or an energy of pure love and connection. In Judaism, we start our day reminding ourselves that our energy needs to be one of love, starting to enter into those fallen parts of self. And this, he writes, is why the right-hand side is so important, because that is the hand that is doing the mitzvah. And that's why we come back to our Gemara about wiping. Now, listen to what he says in the next paragraph. Ki be'emes oires atfilin hem oires gedolim mo'oid meichen gedolim ki ach mehem ishtarshel v'tzamtzen mesechel elyon mesechel atachton nekam b'chinais ad shnestamtzem or nekul b'chinas yuchi kesher shel yad shemer el alev. Oh, now listen to this. He then explains to us, why is it that the tefillin are what color? Black. Again, if we're talking about some supernal, beautiful, happy-go-lucky energy, some nice green coral with a bit of pink, be absolutely divine. I mean, that would be unbelievable. But what color do we use? Black. Why black? He writes, Zebechinas shakrus. Shel tefillin. Bechinas dukkah the shachoira k'mov ki ika tikkun bechinas el shabal edei tzimtzum or k'mova ki shbirasan ha'el edei bechinas ribi or. V'alkein atfilin shem bechinas ois bechinas yisoid bechinas or mesaken akelim meshabim k'yudua. V'alkein tchilas itzias atfilin hu b'metzah. So he says the energy that we're dealing with is an energy of darkness. Now, he did throw something out there because our association with darkness is usually an element of negativity. It's usually what he refers to as the mara shachoira, which is the depression, which is referred to as the black bile. But he threw something in there. And he says that, in fact, the reason why one's emotions are broken is because they don't have guidance and they don't have what we refer to as tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means that they need to have a direction. We need to be told what happy, good, engaged love is. We need to be told what is healthy boundary and fear and concern. What is a space of aspiration? What are those healthy environments? What are they? He says when things get broken is when they have no structure. Without Torah and without avodas Hashem, there's no structure. It's just like whatever I'm feeling, whatever's going on, that's what's going on. And the tefillin is this black energy which represents constriction. So instead of thinking, gosh, okay, we're dealing with this supernal light of love and warmth, and it should maybe be white, the tefillin. We've deviated a little bit from the coral colors. But here we're now dealing with black. And what black represents is a constriction of color. If you think about it on the idea with white being a prism of all the colors, black is a complete constriction of color. So what we're having an intention in putting on our tefillin is we're recognizing that inside of us, there are all these different energies of the heart. And we're feeling lots of things and we're uncomfortable sometimes in our emotions. Our way of engaging is bringing in energy of love, which is coming from the right-hand side. And we are taking all of those energies and we are tying them into our space of inner love for Hashem, learning how to engage that energy. Now have a look at this next source. Next source is in fact picture. So in this picture, you can have a look and see the right-hand side, which is the energy of light. For those online, you can see the picture here. And we have this energy of light that's coming through the right-hand side. And we see that there are how many times that we tie the tefillin on our arm? 7 times. Why 7? Because we know that there are 7 emotional energies within ourselves. And you can see in this picture, these emotional energies are specified here. Let's carry on. And I want to show you a Gemara, because this Gemara is a fundamental Gemara in which we are told on page 7, Sach bein tefillin et tefillin, if a person speaks between tefillin and tefillin, between tefillah le tefillah, which is actually a reference to the tefillin, averehi biyadoi, it is a sin in their hands, and they have to return from war. If an individual was heading out to battle for the Jewish people, and they found out or knew in themselves that they were an individual that's spoken between their tefillin, what that means, what is it referring to, is the arm tefillin you put on, you make a blessing on the arm tefillin, and then you put on your head tefillin. And if you're Ashkenazi, you make another blessing on that. Now, if you speak in between that, you say, how's it? What's going on? Or you answer, Heshmei Rabbah, or you say something, you do something. In that space, that is a disruption between vital spiritual energy. Now, an individual that speaks in between that spiritual energy is a person that doesn't have the capacity to go out to battle. What does that mean? Why do they have to return from battle? Well, what is the discipline here? What is the lack of focus? And what is represented by the tefillin that's on our arms, which represents the emotional energies of the heart, and tefillin that's on our minds, which is a different energy force, which we're going to discover right now. Have a look at the Gemara in Brachas. Gemara in Brachas tells us, Abai have a Yasef Kamei de Rabbah. Abai was sitting before Rabbah. And he saw Rabbah unbelievably happy. Unbelievably happy. He was smiling. He was connected. He was joyful. Wow. And listen to what he says to him, like a real Ashkenazi. Yeah. Listen to what he says to him as a real Ashkenazi. Amar vigilu baradaksiv. 1 second. He says that one should rejoice with trembling, meaning taper your joy. You're getting out of hand, buddy. You know, stop being so exuberant and joyful. You know, we're Ashkenazim. Don't forget. Hamarle. So he says, chill. Ana tefillin menachna. I'm wearing tefillin. Rabbi Yirmiyah have a Yasef Kamei de Reb Zeira Chazil have a Kabbalah Tova Marlei V'chol Eitzav Yem Moiser. So a similar scenario in which Yirmiyah was sitting before Reb Zeira, and he saw also that Reb Yirmiyah was very, very joyful, and he said to him that it's not good to always be so joyful. There needs to be, don't lose yourself to the levity. Don't be overly, and then you lose yourself to a sense of consciousness and awe. There's positivity in having a tapered effect to that type of endless, unbounding happiness. So what has he said to him? No, I'm wearing tefillin. I'm wearing tefillin. What's this magic answer that I'm wearing tefillin? It's almost like you put on tefillin and now you're floating. Now everything's going, you are endlessly happy. What's going on here? How does that work with tefillin? So check the Einayah. The Einayah is a teaching from Rav Kook. The Einayah on this Gemara tells us like this, and this is going to be a very powerful insight into how to reach a space of joy, how to reach a space of calibration. It says, "Metoik sha'aseichel hanoishi hu miyuchad im hargaishes hagufanios mipnei shegam hu koyach beguf al kein tzarich zehirus." He says like this: Because our emotions, okay, they cater to two masters, don't they? Our emotions cater to our bodies. Give someone food, give someone something pleasurable for their body, their emotions get triggered. You give someone an interesting concept or something that's really exciting to think about, or a business venture that's going to give them lots of money. Their emotions start going, whoa, amazing. So the emotions, they cater to two individuals. They cater to two masters. Now, obviously, the lower master, which is the body, doesn't have complete consciousness of anything. It's just walking around like, oh, food, this, it's doing its own thing, but it's not very, very aware of the direction that one should go in. It's just, if you're just following your body, then it's not a very good way to live. So because of this, Rav Kook says a person needs to be very careful when their emotions are unbridled. You have to be very cautious of where you direct your emotions. If your listen to this. He says, because if you're unbelievably happy, what's wrong with being unbelievably happy? Nothing wrong with that. But all you know, at every simcha, we break something, these Jewish people. You know, every time you have a chuppah, you break something. What's the deal? We're saying, taper your happiness. Yes, 99% of you needs to be happy. 1% needs to just be tapering that space. Why? Because if you're going off dancing, someone might come and steal something from your home. And that's what he's saying here. If you are endlessly happy and not conscious and sensitive to taper that a little bit, that animalistic, egoic energy might steal some of that happiness for itself, and you won't realize. This is what tefillin comes to rectify. The tefillin is all about calibration of one's emotions and one's intellect. Yachas im toiches aguf, but shukas achoyme lo yitzva lipnei shenivdeles mehen. Unbelievable. He says this is the whole process. You know what the process is here? And this is essentially why a bar mitzvah boy starts putting on tefillin. Is what is transpiring here is this becomes master. And the hierarchy of engagement, what we refer to as DBT, where an individual starts off with the mind, CBT, where you have the cognitive element that is guiding the emotional element, which is then guiding the physical element. In that space, an individual is calibrated and they're able to create direction and distinction between which emotional capacities are problematic within their experience of life. Okay. When an individual is wearing tefillin, essentially that energy and that direction is that the conscious self is primary. Then it understands how to engage with the emotional self, and that then filters into the physical self. In that space, you can be as happy as you want to be. Okay. That's why while he was wearing tefillin, he was allowed to be as happy as he wants to be. Unbelievable. He says the power of tefillin is that it gives you the power of insight into life that allows you to differentiate which emotions are coming from your dimyon, meaning from your imagination, and which of your emotions are coming from reality. It is giving you the energy. It's giving you the primacy of conscious self over emotional self. In that space, you have a calibrated individual. Yeah.
And then you've got the arm, which is by the heart, and then the Rosh comes down.
Yes.
The physical.
Yes.
It's ultimately like the guide separates the lower half.
Exactly.
It's going all the way down to your nether below.
Yes.
Which is in some way symbolic of having control
of the physical self.
Yeah, but ultimately your lower.
Yes, exactly. And it's not only having control, it's having direction. Now, what's fascinating is the process here is a build-up. This is Jacob's ladder, which we saw the angels going up and then down. And you see, like we spoke about when we spoke about tzitzis, the tzitzis starts off with the body. It starts off with being deeply aware of all of your, confused states and all of your concerns and all of your frazzled elements. And it's drawing into you in a state of innate oneness, into the inner body where you're present. That's your tzitzis, your talus. Then you enter into, once you're in that space, it's a hard space to get into. But once you're in that space, okay, now let me engage in my emotions. I don't even have my head tefillin on, just by the way. I'm not even engaging with that yet. I'm just engaging with my emotions. I'm saying, whatever I'm feeling in my life and whatever I'm engaging with, be it anxiety, fear, depression, love, whatever those spaces are, just let me understand that all of those energies, there's a holiness in them. There's a spirituality in them. There's a goodness in them. They're just lost. They're misdirected. That fear has a good place. It just doesn't know where to go. It's like a lost child. It needs direction. Everyone calm down. Just calm the hell down. And let me just give you an energy force of love. Let me embrace you, is what's happening with the tefillin. Let me embrace you and come back into the heart and just chill. Then I put on my head tefillin, which we're going to see now from the Kutei Halachos. But what Rav Kook is saying is there's this conscious energy and this flow which comes over the self, which says, all of these things, just listen to me. Let's just go forward in a healthy way of oneness and consciousness and understanding that I'm present and I can discern between the screaming kids. Not every kid that's asking for a chocolate needs to be given the chocolate. Not every kid that's crying about wanting more shoes gets given the shoes. Same too, not every emotion that's functioning in its current state needs to be given what it wants. Sometimes it needs to be told, I hear you. That's not necessarily the case. Just settle down and let me show you what the case is. Okay, that's how we're engaging him from a hierarchical perspective. Now listen to how the Likutei Halachos Rabbi Nassim says, Tefillin hem bechinas ra'amim. Tefillin is thunder. Okay, you want to learn more about thunder? We did a shiur about thunder also online. And you can understand that the thunder is a bechinas tikkun hamoichin. It's a healing of the brain. It's a healing of the mind. Because through the thunder, now what is thunder in Judaism? Ra'amim, it's a ra'em. Thunder is in fact it's a emanation. No, in fact, it's chokhmah. Thunder is an emanation. It's a flash of consciousness. So imagine you've got your clouds. Your clouds are your thoughts, okay? And then you have this lightning thunder, and then it just illuminates everything. That's this moment of like, oh, 1 second. All of this that I'm worrying about is nothing. What am I so perturbed about? That's the thunder. That's what we are referring to as tefillin. So the tefillin on your metzach, the tefillin on your head, is this thunder. Tikkun hamoichin. It's fixing all of the clouds of the mind. Because the clouds of the mind are in fact creating a crookedness of the heart. The zoichen simcha. It's only through this process of thunder that you can actually access true happiness. It's only through the clarity of the consciousness that I'm above all of the clouds and I'm above all of the screaming kids. Bang! Now I can actually tap into sustained, systemic happiness. This is the whole happiness of Tefillin. He's actually explaining a different explanation to the Gemara of why they were so happy. I'm wearing Tefillin. Rav Kook said they were happy because they could be happy because they didn't have to be afraid that their happiness might lead to levity. What Rabbi Nassan's explaining, according to Rabbi Nachman, is the reason why they were happy is because they tapped into the essence of happiness. And the essence of happiness comes from the consciousness that I'm connected to all the oneness and nothing of this transient space of finitude is got anything to do with me, that it should affect me on such a level that I shouldn't be happy in my life. As he quotes the Gemara, that Rabbah was smiling the whole day. I don't know, you see these guys on the street, they're smiling, dancing, like, what do I want what you have, But here we see that he was wearing tefillin. Tefillin is happiness. It comes from that breakage and that removal of the blockage of one's heart, the blockage of these 7 emotional energies. Now let's conclude the following 2 forces, which are actually 3. So it says like this. Why does tefillin have to be made out of animal? Maybe, you go to Woolworths now, or you go to Spike and get biltong made from mushrooms. Imagine we had shiitake tefillin, vegan tefillin, gewaldig, made from, from mushrooms, or what's that fake leather that they have? Leather. So why don't we do that? What are the vegans meant to do here? So we see the tefillin ala or behema. It has to be specifically on the skin of an animal. Why? We're on page 10. Unbelievable. We know that before man sinned by following through with his fallen intellect and into his fallen loves, it says that he was covered in light. And light was spelt with an aleph, not with an ayin. An ayin vav resh spells or, which is flesh or skin. An aleph vav resh spells or, which is light. And he says that tefillin is this energy of light, kasoinus or, it's this cloak of light. Shezeh b'chinas tefillin shebechinas or panim b'chinas shufrei di'akov, kein shufrei da'adam shahaya koydem achet. The face and the eminence of Jacob's face was the same as Adam before the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Shaz hayameir or aganos mezayna yom shem b'chinas kasoinus or ba'alef. The ikar tefillin, I'll just skip down to the second line at the bottom of the page. The ikar tefillin nasan alidei or behema daika. Get tefillin him moichin gvoyim moed b'chinas or aganos v'alkein tefillin diktavim al gevei or behema daika. Zeb'chinas b'nei adam sharumim b'das mesim masma k'behem. So what we're doing here is we're creating this unbelievable juxtaposition. We're creating a space where we have this unbelievable light that's flowing in from the thunder and from the right-hand side and from this clarity and from this love. And it's striking the urmimius. It's striking not only the nakedness of self, which is referred to as the flesh of the animal, which has no context, it has no consciousness, it has no direction, it just goes with whatever it wants. That's the energy of the dead flesh that we're putting onto our arms, essentially saying this is fallen, the fallen states. And at the same time, we're understanding that juxtaposition of energy. Do I want to be a fallen entity? without any life, just following the Bahamias. Now, Armimius not only means nakedness, it means cunningness. Now, what happens in this space is the self starts to be cunning. It starts to try and find all unique aspects which are going to give it some happiness, which is unhealthy. And that's why it says, now, he says it on a deeper level. In fact, we've just specified this animalistic energy very negatively. He says there's a tikkun here. You want to know what this ore represents, what the skin represents? He says you have to rectify your animal by turning into an animal. How do you rectify your animal by turning into an animal? Yeah, well, listen to what he says. When you take out your tefillin and you're touching the skin of the tefillin, we need a whole list here of all the kavanos. But he says, when you take out your tefillin and you're touching the skin of that tefillin, you have to remember, I need to be like an animal. Now, what is an animal? An animal has no das. It's not thinking. It just chill. It's just not thinking. It's just present, focused, conscious, whatever's in front of it. Legamre. Kilo eino shum das klal. You have to remove your das. You have to remove your consciousness entirely. All of the thinking, just remove it. Vilismach rak alemuna. And tap into this ultimate light and this love that is flowing in the energy around it. And that's the only way you can heal your mind. That's the only way you can purify your mind. And that's the way to heal your heart. So he says, when a person finds that they've got so much blocked energy in their heart and there's such a crookedness of their emotional energy, he says, you need to stop thinking. You need to just stop. Become the most simplified entity that exists. Stop. Just stop. And just go with a sense of simplicity. Just be simple. Simplify yourself. Through that, you get to the highest consciousness that you can get to. And that's the energy of tefillin. It's the consciousness. We've been talking about consciousness. It seems strange. We're saying our tefillin is this energy that comes in to rectify the emotions through the consciousness and the CBT and all of this hierarchical energy. And now you're telling me just behead yourself, get rid of the mind. Doesn't make sense. But the answer is no. The highest consciousness is not unconsciousness. And it's not the space where you're overthinking. It is accessed when you stop the complexity of thinking and you access just the simplicity of thinking, which is the meta consciousness. And that is the energy that we're tapping into when it comes to tefillin. The meta consciousness is flowing through the clouds like this thunder that's coming then into this warm, loving energy of the emotions. And it's saying, I'm giving you context. I'm giving you direction. And then it's flowing into the energy of the body through those straps that is just flowing that energy into a space of understanding how to function through the body. And that's why it's made from animal skin. Yeah, last one. This is a yeah,
transformation of energy.
Totally.
Like the alchemist would transform wine into gold.
Vinegar to gold, yeah. So we're transforming our fallen emotions into golden, healthy emotions. That's how what we're doing with into a higher consciousness and subsuming that all together and tying it into that higher consciousness. Yeah. Yeah.
It's what the first one with the chakra, the energy system.
Yeah, totally.
Like from the top 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 1.
Yeah. So in Judaism, we have 10. Yeah, and this is going from the highest all the way through the 7 emotions that are here into that calibrated state. Yeah. Just the simplicity. That's the highest level of simplicity. In spirituality, the highest level was simple, being simple. So let's finish off with these final two. Lakutei Halachos on page 12, he says, now, tefillin is an energy of remembering. As it says, it should be a remembrance between your eyes. This is why it says Beinei Necha. This is why the tefillin, it says in between your eyes. Did Hashem get it wrong? I mean, just be a little bit more specific. You could add in maybe a few more words into the Torah and just say, guys, actually, just by the way, goes on your forehead, yeah, above your hairline. That's where it goes. Just in between your eyes. So complicated. Yes, it's in between your eyes. You know why? Because it's there to fix up your vision. And you know what your vision is? Your vision is it is so perturbed and particular, and it is so taken by everything it sees in this world, and it gets lost in that vision, or it thinks is vision. So you're meant to put on the tefillin as a remembrance to say, it is my consciousness that I see the world through. It is the meta space that I see the world through. And it's a recognition that all of the things of this world, kehereth ayin, are so finite that they don't even exist in a morsel in terms of what I experience in my life and the totality of my life. To finally conclude, we know, and the Kli Yakar brings this in the final verse, or final paragraph and source. It tells us why the name God of God, which is Shin Daled Yud, is written on our tefillin. Now, you should remember this from some previous shirim that we've done on this name, especially when we learned about mezuzah. And in this teaching, you'll see it brought up again. So listen to this final teaching. Ki b'tefillin yesh shem shel Shaddai. The name of God that is found on our tefillin is the name Shaddai. Why? Tahainu. Hadalet, the kesher hatfillin. So you know where the dalet is found in the tefillin? It's found in the kesher. Okay, so it's found in this nexus. Ma'achorav, behind you. Behind you. Yud shin ois yesh bifanav. And in front of you, on your arm, or on your arm, and on your forehead, is Yud Shin. Is Yud Shin. What does Yud Shin spell? Yesh. What's Yesh? In fact, Yeshus is ego, but we know that the ultimate space of Yesh is not the fallen space of Yeshus, which is isness, but in fact, Yesh means having, has. Now, it's fascinating that the Jewish people are referred to, or individuals are referred to, tzaddikim or righteous, will inherit shai oilamis, shin yud worlds. Why shin yud worlds? Because the whole experience of life, if it's from the Gehenna experience, which is the fallen experience of life, is an experience of never having. I never feel that I have. I always need more. I never feel that I'm existing. I never feel that I'm just existing and I'm present and that I'm okay and that I'm happy and that I've got everything. I don't feel my connection. The opposite of that is yesh, is an isness to what I experience. And that's why the Kli Yakar says, what's in front of you is an isness. The hainu shin b'shel rosh, the shin on the head, the yud b'shel yad, and the yud on the arm, V'yesh hainu schar olam haba. Now, the isness is a consciousness of the world to come. The isness is a consciousness of the world to come. We try to tap into that isness in this world, but it's very difficult. As it says that Hashem will give us to those who love Yeshus. Yeshus is a havingness. When a person has isness, when a person knows that innate to me is fullness, all of the elements of this world are irrelevant. I'm not interested to go chasing because I have everything already in front of me. A person with immaturity is a person that can never sit still. They have to constantly be going, go. I have to go there, I have to experience everything because I never experience anything. And that's the experience of Yesh, who Ramos Bedalis. And you know what? You know what breaks the Yeshus? Is the Dalit on the back of our heads. The Dalit on the back of our heads represents the four directions of this world. The expansivity that one looks to experience in the four corners of their experience of this life, which we've learned about with tzitzis.
It's also what Hashem said.
Yes, and that's exactly what he says now. Unbelievable, Michael. He says, look at the back of my head. I can't show you the front because you won't be able to understand or live in the space once you see the front. If I show you the front, Hashem was saying to Moshe, you won't have one aspect of yourself that will want to breathe in this world anymore because you just want that Yeshus. So I can only show you the back. And what the back has in it, you know what the back of the tefillin has? It has the reward of this world. You follow Hashem, Hashem will look after your parnasa, will give you good health, will give you the things you need in this world. That's what speaks to a person's ego. I can show you that, Moshe Rabbeinu. I can show you that. But at the same time, that's the disruption between the shin and the yud, the yeshus, the hasness, the fulfillment, is the dalet, the four corners that splinter the back. That's why, in fact, it says, according to Kabbalah, Paro, Pharaoh, spelled backwards, spells Oref, which is the back of the head, the back of the neck. That's where the tefillin goes on. That's why the fourth meal after Shabbos, which is a mitzvah of Melava Malka, is a meal that heals and feeds and nourishes the bone at the back of the neck, or the bone at the back of the head, which is the luz bone, which is a reference to this particular energy force that we're dealing with. So that's what Hashem was saying to him, that this space behind you is of naught, is of nothingness. So to conclude, what we've understood so far is that tefillin is a multifaceted energy force, unbelievable technology, unbelievable spiritual technology that is there to recalibrate self. It is there to enter into the fallen parts of self and reunite it with the conscious and elevated parts of who you essentially are through the right hand of love, through the consciousness and the lightning of your conscious mind. And all of those spaces are coming to reunite the fallen elements of love, those lost kids that are running around frantic and saying, just chill. Let me show you where to go. That's essentially what tefillin is here to come along to teach us. The blackness is the tzimtzum of that energy. It's just not rife. It's very contained. And we've learned that the animal part of tefillin on a higher level is that when we see the animal aspect, learn from the animal. The animal doesn't overthink. The animal has simplicity. In order to get to the higher consciousness of the mind, you need to just simplify the mind. Just relax the mind. Yeah, unbelievable teachings from tefillin. Yeah, so please God should be with bracha. And are there any questions? Tefillin tomorrow mornings at 7 a.m. here. Yeah. Yes, Gary.
Hi.
then you complete the hand. Excellent question. So Gary asked, why is it that we start off by putting on the head? Start off by putting on the emotion, the raw emotion. And just before we finish with the emotion, we park the hand. Then we go to the meta-conscious self. And only after the meta-conscious self, do we start putting on the elements around our hand. And what do we say while we put on the elements around our hand? Verastich, which means I am engaged to you, I'm married to you, Hashem. The marriage with God is not a subservience of, okay, please don't hurt me, please don't kill me. The marriage of God is when you as a human being are calibrated to such an extent that you are so just consciously walking and present and joyful in life because of your spiritual awareness and connection, that you've brought God into your existence. That's marriage. When you're holding your spouse and you've allowed that energy to flow into the fruition of the fallenness of self, and you're able to hold that oneness and unity in that fallenness, that's marriage. That's connection. And that's why it is only after the product of the emotions together with the conscious combining and flowing back down into the physical realm of our experience of this world, which looks fallen and which looks very confusing, which looks like a dalid, which is just prismed in all different areas and corners. When I break through that and I'm able to say, oh, that I can then say verastich, then I can actually be married to Hashem, bring Hashem and spirituality into my life. Yeah, great question. All right, my friends, thank you everyone, and should be with lots of bracha.